Our first step is to tear back. Now this is only partly about removing the existing fabric. It's also about careful observation and documentation. Every chair is a little bit different, so no matter how many books or videos you have, the very best resource is the chair itself. If we just rip all this off and throw it in the garbage or put it into a bag, we may miss some really important details that are going to help us put the chair back together later. So one of the first things I want to do is capture a few photos. I like to get 2 to 3 angles and then close-up shots of anything that I think might be worth remembering later. When in doubt, go ahead and get a few extras because the picture you don't end up using is a minor inconvenience compared to the picture that you wish you would have taken. The next thing we like to do, especially if you're relatively new to upholstery, is to label our parts. Now it's worth asking your client every once in a while, they may want the old fabric back. So make sure you're okay to draw on it before you do this. But it's really helpful to just label on the chair while it's still together and you can tell what everything is. I'm going to add a tack band around to the front, which is a really generic name for a strip of fabric. And we'll aim for about here, so I'm going to draw a fictional line in and then add a label to that. That's just going to help us introduce a couple more techniques that I really want you to see. Now I want to talk a little bit about my system for labeling here. First of all, what does this mean? IB stands for inside back. You'll notice out here that I've used an OB for outside back. These are going to be pretty universal terms as you move into more complex furniture. Anything we touch sitting in the chair is an inside piece. Anything we don't touch sitting in the chair is going to be an outside piece. That might be backs, that might be arms, that might be wings. But you will see these terms throughout the reupholstery process. They'll reappear on our cut list, on our cut diagram, and on our new fabric. So we want to make sure that we're consistent in how we're labeling things. The other thing I want you to notice is where I have positioned my labels. Now, if you've taken our cushion courses, our slip seat courses, you know that we label on the bottom edge so we know what direction it goes. It makes sense to use the same rule here. So when I put it here, I know it's the inside back. I know this is the bottom. I don't have to fill it up with arrows. I don't have to write top, left, right, bottom. This one label is going to indicate for me what it is and what direction it went on the chair. The simpler, the better. The very last thing I want to do before I actually start tearing fabric off is to protect some of this show wood. In particular, right here and right here where I'm going to be laying the furniture down. Now I'm going to use some scrap batting, but really whatever you have around is going to be fine. If you have scrap fabric, whatever is handy is going to do this job just fine. But we can get a little rough with the furniture as we work, and I don't want to mess the show wood up. So that should keep us out of trouble with the show wood. Let's go ahead and flip this chair over and get a few tools and we'll start taking the fabric off. But I do want to make sure that you're using an upholstery specific staple lifter as opposed to a flathead screwdriver or anything like that. This is going to be a lot safer and a lot more efficient. So we're going to use that and a pair of side cutters. You might prefer pliers, use whatever's comfortable. And of course, anytime we're doing upholstery, taking staples out, putting them in, you need to be wearing safety glasses. I like to work with my chair in this angle because I can access just about everything that we're going to need to get to, starting with the bottom cloth. So as I've tipped my chair upside down, all I need to look for is the first round of visible staples, which is usually going to be on the underside. And if I start taking those out, let me show you how this lifter works. With the point of that tool, I can dig right underneath. And lift these little staples out. What I love about upholstery is it's kind of archaeology. And if we're paying attention, we can learn a lot about our chair. A couple things I'm thinking is that this has actually been reupholstered already, because this looks very much like somebody's bed sheet, and these little tiny staples are not what you would typically see in manufacturing. So they're a little tough to grab with that teeny tiny crown on there. It's really comfortable to hold on to the furniture right back here so that you can brace the chair and dig in against it. But you don't want to do that, because if you slip, and you will, you're going to stab yourself right in the hand and you're not going to like it. So move your hand out of the way so that if you slip off, you're not going to get yourself with that very, very pointy tool. All right, there's our first layer off. And I'm going to recommend, as you're learning, that you just hang on to everything until the furniture is done. Doesn't hurt to have a couple extra pieces that you don't look back to. So now I'm on to my next layer, which is this bottom piece of welt cord. Same thing all the way around. I've lifted all the staples around the bottom. That's all the staples I can see. So now what? Now we go to whatever layer is on top. My seat is underneath my inside back, and my inside back is underneath my outside back. So that's the piece on top that I need to work at, even though I can't see the staples. I know that's got to be the next one to come off. So I'm going to work under here and start lifting. This one right here is very easy to lift. This is called a tack strip or a nail strip. And I'm going to lift this up here and I'm going to show you what we're pulling out. If I unroll this, it is nails right into a cardboard strip. Modern ones tend to be metal. I use a metal one when I use these, which is not terribly often. But this guy works like this. You pop them in here like this, boop, right through your fabric, roll them under, and hammer them down. When you pull these out, I want to encourage you to right away fold them up and throw that in the garbage. I also want to show you up top here, this is a closure we're going to show you later when we get to the outside back, and this is called Ply Grip. And it's not holding up terribly well. It's kind of pulling off of the frame, which might lead you to sort of believe, well, that's not a closure we like, we're not going to use it. But if I pull this back, and this might not make sense now, but hang in there because this will come back later on. I can actually see this Ply Grip didn't get stapled to the frame. So that's why it's now pulling away in a couple spots. It isn't really a failure of the hardware, it's just a failure of how it was applied. But do pay attention, because when you see things that didn't work well, it can really help you make better decisions for your own clients now and in the future. Well, let's go ahead and pull out that second tack strip. Look at that, this one's practically falling out for me. This one comes out, I'm going to throw it right away, fold it up. I should have mentioned, some upholsterers like to work with gloves. I have never gotten comfortable with them, but you certainly can try gloves if you're finding that this is hard on your hands. All right, and now up to the top, and you can see what this Ply Grip looks like from the other side. It's a metal bendy strip, and actually I can just pop my fabric right out of there. And this piece will save, and look at that, when I put this on the table later on, I will know what it is and I will know what edge is the bottom. So that can get folded up and set aside. This too, I'm going to fold that up and set aside. As you get more comfortable, a lot of this stuff, I'm not planning to reuse this. I could certainly toss it. But when in doubt, just hang on to it. You can always decide to throw it away at the end of your project. But it's a little piece of evidence that you never know. Maybe we'll want it. And now I can come in here and I can get this ply grip off. Very easy to pull off because it wasn't stapled in enough places. They did us a favor anyway. That too, I like to throw away right away. And then I'm all set. Now I do see a whole bunch more staples and I can just keep at it like I did around the bottom. Now we have this back up and I want to show you everything's loosened around the frame, and we have one more spot here where our seat and our inside back tuck through and they come through to the outside back. So what I'm looking at here is actually my inside back fabric, and then there's my seat coming through that frame. And this is very typical of how furniture is designed. If you haven't seen many chairs torn back, sometimes clients are very surprised by how much open space is actually in there. But it's plenty strong. It's called stick built when it's glued and rails in there like that. But if you, every once in a while, maybe a woodworker shows up and they've built a piece of furniture and their first inclination is to give you like a solid piece, like solid wood everything. And it's actually very, very difficult to upholster well because we really need these slots to tuck our fabric through and hide all our fasteners. Now I want to pause here because this is sort of an important part or important stage of the tear back journey, because if we were going to keep the existing padding, this is where we would stop. We would actually leave the fabric just draped on there, maybe just a few staples so that it doesn't move, and then we would go ahead and plan our cut list, our cut diagram, do all of that. When we have live students in Minneapolis, this is how we ask them to bring it in, because as soon as I pull this fabric off, that padding underneath is going to start to erode. It's going to get disturbed. So I just want to pause here because sometimes you may be upholstering things that are relatively new. They are in very good shape. Your client just wants fresh fabric on there. So if that is the case, go ahead and leave it in place so that it preserves your padding until you are ready to pull that fabric off and replace it.